hurt someone who trusted you. Not carelessly. Not because you did not know them. Because you did. The closeness was not incidental to what happened. It was the condition that made it possible. You could only have done it to someone that close. Anyone further away would not have had the access, would not have known where to find it. Fyodor Dostoevsky spent his entire literary career examining this. Not betrayal as crime, not betrayal as moral failure. Betrayal as a structural consequence of intimacy itself. His observation, the one that makes his work still uncomfortable to read, was that betrayal is not the opposite of love. It is one of the things love makes possible. The question he spent his life asking was not why people betray. It was why they betray the specific people they do. And the answer he found was the most unsettling thing he ever wrote. Most frameworks for understanding betrayal begin in the wrong place. They begin with motive. What did the person want? What did they stand to gain? What failure of character produced the act? Dostoevsky's framework begins somewhere else. It begins with proximity. His observation, drawn from decades of observing human psychology through the laboratory of his fiction, was that the people we betray most significantly are not the people who are most vulnerable to us in general. They are the people who are most vulnerable to us specifically, the ones who have given us the particular access that makes the particular act possible, who have trusted us with the specific knowledge, the specific weakness, the specific version of themselves that we then use, or neglect, or expose, or simply fail to protect in the way they believed we would. The intimacy precedes the betrayal, not accidentally. The intimacy is what makes the betrayal possible. And Dostoevsky's darkest observation is this: the more completely someone has trusted you, the more completely they have shown you where they can be hurt, the more precisely you are capable of hurting them. This is not a moral argument. It is a structural one. The person who has never been close to you cannot betray you in the ways that matter. They do not have the map. The map was given in trust. It was given because trust is what intimacy produces, and the map shows exactly where the person is most exposed. Dostoevsky's framework does not ask why people betray. It asks why we continue to give the map, even after we have seen what happens to it. His answer is the part that is hardest to hold, because it does not locate the problem in the person who betrays. It locates it in the structure of love itself. The most documented case study of this mechanism in all of Dostoevsky's work is Rogozhin, the antagonist, if that word is adequate, of the idiot. A man whose love is total, whose possession is absolute, and whose relationship to the person he loves is inseparable from his relationship to destroying her. Rogozhin does not betray from indifference. He betrays from excess, the intensity of his feeling, the completeness with which he has mapped the person he loves, the precision with which he understands her. Means that when the love cannot be contained, the only outlet available to it is destruction. He knows exactly what will hurt her. He knows this because he loves her. This is Dostoevsky's first and most specific observation. The betrayal is not a failure of love. It is love at a temperature that the relationship cannot contain. Most people encounter a quieter version of this, not the extreme of Rogozhin, the ordinary version. The person whose feelings for someone are so large, so precisely focused, so specific in their object, that when those feelings become unmanageable, the action they produce is directed at exactly the right place to cause exactly the right damage. Not because they want to cause damage, because they know. They know because they were given the knowledge, because the knowledge was given as a gift. The second pattern Dostoevsky documented is the betrayal of expectation, the specific hurt that comes not from an act, but from an absence, from someone who was trusted to be a particular kind of presence, and who was not. The person who needed you to show up and you did not because you could not, because something, fear, distraction, self-protection, the ordinary inadequacy of human attention, was larger in that moment than the obligation you had accepted. Dostoevsky was particularly interested in this version because it is the betrayal that the betrayer most frequently does not recognize as betrayal. I didn't do anything, I just wasn't there. That is not the same as doing something. His framework says, to the person waiting for you, it is exactly the same. The third pattern is the closest. You have used what you were given, not dramatically, not with intention, in the ordinary, barely conscious way that intimate knowledge gets used. The thing someone told you in a private moment, mentioned later in an argument. The vulnerability they showed you, referenced, even gently, in a way that reminded them it was known. The version of themselves they trusted you with, reflected back in a way that made them wonder whether they should have. I didn't mean it like that. I wasn't using it against them. It just came out. Dostoevsky's framework says, the act and the intention are separate questions. The map was used. The person who gave it knows, and they will not give that part of the map again. Think about the specific person you have hurt most, not the person you have wronged most objectively, the person whose hurt you carry most precisely, whose face you see when you think about what you are capable of. Think about how you knew them, what they had given you access to, the specific version of themselves they had trusted you with, and think about how what you did or did not do was made possible by exactly that access. You could only have done it to someone that close. Anyone else would not have been hurt in the same way. The hurt was specific because the knowledge was specific. Dostoevsky's framework says this is not a coincidence. The intimacy and the betrayal are not separate events. The intimacy is the mechanism through which the betrayal became possible. And here is the part that is hardest to sit with. You are currently someone else's map. Someone who has given you access, who has shown you where they are most exposed, who trusts that the knowledge you hold will be held carefully. Think about whether you are holding it carefully, not in the dramatic sense, in the ordinary sense, the things they have told you that you have not fully protected, the version of themselves they have shown you that you have perhaps not fully honored, the ways in which your own needs, your own distraction, your own self-protection have occasionally been larger than the obligation that the access carried, not deliberately, not out of malice, in the way that ordinary human inadequacy produces ordinary human betrayal, in the way that everyone who has ever been trusted has also, in some proportion, betrayed that trust. Dostoevsky's most uncomfortable observation was not about the people who betray deliberately. It was about the people who betray accidentally, who did not intend to use the map, who did not recognize that they had, who carry, without fully naming it, the knowledge of something they did to someone who had trusted them, and who have not, in the years since, managed to fully put it down. Think about what you're carrying. Think about who gave it to you to carry, and think about what you did with the access. And this is worth stating directly. His framework is not a path to being forgiven. It is a path to understanding what happened, which is a different and considerably less comfortable thing. His observation was that betrayal, in its full range, from the catastrophic to the ordinary, is not primarily a moral event. It is a relational one. It occurs in the specific space between two people. in the gap between what was trusted and what was done with that trust. And his most important clinical observation was about what happens to that gap when it is not acknowledged, when the person who created it does not turn toward it. The gap does not close on its own. It becomes a structure, a permanent feature of the relationship or of the person carrying it that organizes everything that comes after it. Rogozhin cannot leave Nastasia because the gap he has created between them, the space of everything he has done to someone he loves, is the most honest part of his interior. It contains the fullest version of what he is capable of, and leaving it unacknowledged would require leaving that version of himself unacknowledged too. He stays not because he hopes to repair it. He stays because the gap itself has become the most truthful thing between them. And the truth, however painful, is less unbearable than the lie of pretending the gap is not there. This is what Dostoevsky believed about betrayal and intimacy, that the gap is not a reason to leave the relationship with the person you hurt, or the relationship with yourself. It is a reason to look at it directly, to know exactly what it is, to hold it without flinching. Because the person who can look at what they did, who can name it with the precision it deserves, is the person who has the only real option available. Not to undo it. That is not available. To carry it honestly. You hurt someone who trusted you. Dostoevsky's question is not whether you are sorry. It is whether you know with the precision the act deserves, what you did with the access they gave you. But betrayal is only one direction in which intimacy becomes destruction. The other direction is inward. Schopenhauer documented something Dostoevsky only circled, the specific drive to destroy not the people closest to you, but the happiness you have finally allowed yourself. The pattern that dismantles what is working, that introduces the friction that ends the good thing, that makes the person who has everything find a way to have nothing. Why we destroy our own happiness. That is next.